Yes.
And that the devil was attacking you in several ways. How did you get past that?
I just kept on praying and putting myself in God. How did I get past the temptations of the first week of my... it was kept on praying and then kept on checking in with the spiritual director. Because it's very important to do that, because it's very easy to be fooled or discouraged, or distracted in some way. And this is where it's important to pray constantly, but also to check in with someone else to let you know that you're on the right path. Because if you face it alone, the devil doesn't fight fair. So you have to ask for help and to be in the presence of others. Somebody at the break mentioned something about, the father issue, and he said, I didn't have that good a relationship with my father, so I'm not quite sure I understand what you're talking about. And let's be perfectly honest, some of us didn't, fathers were very much strict disciplinarians perhaps back then. Maybe they didn't show much affection. Maybe they weren't present for you a lot. If they're living, it's never too late to have a relationship with your father. I mean, I give you an example of mine, because everybody said, you must have a wonderful father. I didn't always think so. There was times when I was a teenager where I couldn't stand the man. You know what I'm saying? And I got to this realization, and may I share with you just a personal observation that may help you in your relationship with your parents. Most of the values I received and most of the spirituality I received from my father and my mother were great and holy gifts. And I'm very, very grateful. And as I get older, I appreciate them more. So a lot of what I am depends on what my father and mother gave me. But they also made terrible mistakes in raising me. You know what I'm saying? And my siblings. Either out of the smallness of their vision or because they had not been shown much affection or love in their background. You know what I'm saying? So I got to the point in my life where I could accept all the good and give thanks to God for it, and I could blow away the rest of it as if it was chaff. You know what I'm saying? And then I was able to accept my mother and father for the adults that they are, that they had the same challenges to get to adulthood that I have, that they made the same mistakes and they made some really good decisions, but I was able to treat them now as an adult to adult. For me, that was a revelation. I was able now to see them not just as mom and dad, not just as parental figures or as mom and dad as authority figures, but now I was able to see them as Greg and Nelda, who made their own decisions, sometimes very challenging ones, and did the best they could within the lights they had. And so now I have this relationship, not of mom and dad, but Greg and Nelda. Does that make any sense? Because I'm an adult too, and I have made my decisions, and I have gone through Fregasso University, and I have something to bring to this dialogue with them. And this really has helped me. Now I have this relationship with them that is one of equals, not just of being a subordinate, a child. And that has helped me a great deal appreciate them. I've been able to rejoice in the good that they have brought, and at the same time to not be bound by some of the mistakes they made. I'm hoping that's of some help to you. You know where else this has helped? And this is just my own personal opinion. This is not the catechism, or anything of that nature. This has helped me with my understanding of the church. Because the church gave me wonderful gifts of faith, understanding of Christ, introduction to the Savior, a concept of hope and the kingdom to come, and things of that nature. I am grateful to the church. I'm talking about institutional church, no? On the other hand, the institutional church made some mistakes in raising me. Some of the emphasis on hellfire and brimstone, the emphasis on rules and regulations that the priests and nuns imposed upon me, the not so much of an introduction to the merciful God that Jesus came to reveal. Those things I can blow away like chaff. Does that make sense? I can say, okay, that was good, but I don't have to be stuck there. And I can accept the good the church has done for me in raising me, but I can also say, I'm an adult now, and I don't have to be treated as a parent-child in this relationship with God. And that's helped me a great deal. I can be grateful for what the church has given me, and at the same time say, I don't need to be stuck at 6 years old at St. Anne's School. I can be an adult now, growing up in the arms of the church without being a slave to the church. Does that make sense? That's helped me a great deal, and maybe that'll help you in your relationship with your parents or any authority figures, because some people have carried that around for a long time. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've heard men and women, oh, this nun was mean to me in 3rd grade, and that's why I don't go to church. Well, get over it. I mean, like, really? You know what I'm saying? So you're going to throw out the child with the bathwater. I mean, you forgive the nun. She was the representative of the church at the time, but you've got to see beyond that, to the treasures beyond that. And you have to accept that as good and holy, at the same time not accepting that she may have been a very unhappy woman. I had some nuns that were very unhappy women, that may not have been called to that vocation. On the other hand, I had some saintly sisters, who raised me, and I can distinguish between the two now. You know what I'm saying? I can accept the good. I don't have to accept the rest. I can move on. I'm an adult now, and so I'm very grateful for you allowing me to share. That's just my personal opinion. That's not church teaching, or don't go back to your priest. Did you know what Monsignor said? He is preaching heresy. Heresy. Let's go burn him at the stake. Okay. Okay. One of the aspects of divine mercy is, remember, trust in God. Jesus, I trust in you. Okay. Now, how does trust look like? Does anybody have an idea what trust looks like? When you talk about trust, what comes to mind? Yes? Safety.
When I put indulgence in my faith, that's like putting money in a trust bank.
Okay.
There's no way you can explain in any amount of money, whether it's in any denomination. I cannot explain how you can put that trust into a heart and let it grow. It's kind of a mystery thing to me.
Anybody else have an idea on trust?
Jump in with both feet.
Jump in with both feet, not knowing exactly where you're going to land. That's letting go, isn't it? What else when it comes to trust? Courage. That allows you to do things that perhaps you would not otherwise have done, because you feel that you have the backing of someone. Humility, yes. That means that you don't have to puff yourself up. You can trust in someone else's love for you, and you don't have to puff yourself up.
Blindness a little bit.
A little bit of blindness, yeah. Not knowing exactly what's on the other side.
Believing without seeing.
Believing without seeing. Oh, that's a nice passage from St. Paul. Yes, I love it, yeah.
How about joy?
Joy, yes, because when you trust, you're not afraid, is there? Fear is not an issue. Well, let me give you my 10 commandments for trusting, okay? Write them down, etch them on your heart, put them on your forehead. You will be tested about this later. My first commandment, I wrote these down many years ago, but I thought I would give them to you now. You shall not worry, for worry is the most unproductive of all activities. You can be afraid. If a bear attacks you on the way to the Hermitage over here, there is a basic human response. Fear for your self-survival. Run like hell, okay? Or maybe not run like hell, no, because you're supposed to not run from a bear. Because they're much faster than you are, obviously, so. But fear is a good thing in that as long as you know what's going on, there's an appropriate response to flee or to deal with the issue, okay? But worry is different. Worry means dwelling on it. And I don't know about you, but my mother was the greatest worrier of all time. If she didn't have something to worry about, she'd invent it. And she would mill it and remill it and go over it and go over it and go over it until it ended up being way bigger than what it was supposed to be. And the poor woman was hardly ever at peace because she was worrying about something. So worry, in a sense, is a total lack of trust in God. That somehow or another, this is all going to work out all right. I have to keep on reminding myself this when I come to worry, because I'm just like my mother's son, you know. The good God who has carried me safe thus far is not going to drop me now. Isn't that pretty simple? The good God who has carried me safe thus far is not going to drop me now. So I place my trust in him. The other thing about worry, studies have proven that 95% of what you worry about never happens. Never happens. It's fiction. We're living in some other planet. We're remilling and remilling it. Well, some of the things we worry about is, yes.
Do you think worrying is a sin?
Sometimes if it gets excessive, what it means is you're saying, I don't trust in you, Lord. I don't believe that you'll take care of me. But Jesus said 365 times in the New Testament, be not afraid. I am with you at all times. You know, one of the most powerful passages in all of Scriptures is the passage where Moses and the people of Israel have escaped from Pharaoh, and now Pharaoh has sent 600 chariots and charioteers. I love that passage. And they're trapped up against the Red Sea, no? And they're going to be destroyed by Pharaoh, his chariots and charioteers, which were basically the modern tank battalions today. And God said, do not worry, be still, I will do the fighting for you. Isn't that a powerful line? We tend to forget it when we see the Charlton Heston Ten Commandments version. Do not worry, be still, I will do the fighting for you. And what did he do? He opened the ocean, they went through, he did the fighting for them, he delivered them. And oftentimes when we're in a moment of worry, when we constantly worry about something, we don't believe that he will do the fighting for us. You know, the British Navy has a wonderful custom that when all alarms go off on the boat, that they're under attack, they have a minute of silent stillness. As soon as the alarms go off, you know, battle stations, battle stations, battle stations, American Navy men will go to their stations right away, but the British Navy will stop for a minute. Okay, gather my wits about me. We've trained for this. What's my next step? I can trust on my fellow sailors. I can trust in this ship. I can do this all right. I don't have to panic. And then after a minute, the alarm goes off again. Then they go to their stations. That has saved more ships than anything possible. So that moment of quiet silence, if only we had that before crises, you know? If we said like, wait a minute, pump the brakes turbo. And let's just take a little bit of moment here. Who am I? I am God's son. Where am I? I'm in his hands. What's going to happen doesn't matter as long as he and I are together doing this. Okay? So sometimes excessive worrying can end up being sinful because what you're saying is, no, God, I don't believe you. I don't trust that you who have taken good care of me so far are going to take care of me in this one. Okay? So, yes.
So Monsignor, then it's really total acceptance of faith.
That's right.
In the Lord.
That's right. I mean, it's a radical way of living to live in faith like that. The other thing about this is we worry about the future. And so I have another commandment. Are you ready for this one? Don't try to cross bridges before you get there. No one has ever succeeded in doing so. You know, most of us are subject, I don't know about you, but to catastrophic thinking. Do you know what catastrophic thinking is? I'm real good at it sometimes. If A happens to me, B happens. And if B happens, C is going to happen. And if C is going to happen, D is going to happen. So obviously, if A happens to me, Z it will happen. The worst possible conclusion will happen to me. The catastrophe that I would have dreaded will happen to me. Does life work that way? No. No, life is not linear. Life doesn't go down like a bunch of dominoes. I'll give you an example. I was just a country pastor in El Rito. Have you ever heard of El Rito, New Mexico?
Saw you there.
And the El Rito, the church fell down when I got there. I was 28 years old. I was my first parish, and it was an old mission built in 1827. And the walls were 6 feet thick, and you'd think they'd never have fallen down. And when I got there, the people of El Rito said, "Do you like our historic church? Isn't our church just beautiful?" And I said, "Yeah, it's beautiful." And then a few months later, it fell down, and they came to me and said, "Now, Father, what are you going to do with your church?" And I said to them, "It's not my church, it's not your church, it's our church, and together we're going to fix it." No? But I really didn't believe that. I thought it was going to be my job to fix it. I am the pastor after all. I have all the answers. And so I got contractors together. I got everybody organized and everything else. Contractor didn't know what the heck they were doing. Nobody's built 6-foot thick walls in a long time. And so the new walls collapsed. They're 20 feet high. They just slumped. And so I'll never forget, I had said I have to face the people now and tell them the new walls fell. And I was afraid of doing so. And I finally went up there and I said, "I'm sorry, the new walls fell." And I broke down and cried. Never before in my life. I come from a family that don't cry, you know what I'm saying? And so the parishioners came over afterwards and said, "It's all right, Father. You worked so hard on this church. Now it's our turn." And you know what? They built it. Wasn't that God's plan after all? Maybe I had to learn the hard way to let go of it. Maybe I had to let it go. I didn't have to fear or worry about it or cross bridges before I got there. It wasn't for me to do that. It was for them to build it. And now they still have pride. We built the church. That's so much better than say, "Oh, Father Jerome built it a few years ago. We don't know who was." Who was that priest? You know. Let me give you another example. After that, I was sent by the bishop to canon law studies in Washington, D.C. I had always been wanting to go on to graduate studies. But I wanted to go on to history, so the bishop called me into his office and said, "I'm sending you on to graduate studies to get a doctorate." And I said, "Oh, thank you, Archbishop. I've always wanted to study church history." And he said, "No, it's not church history. It's canon law." Canon law? I don't even like canon law. Oh, you will get to appreciate it. I don't know anything about canon law. That's why I'm sending you. And so I went to Washington, D.C., and there I was with these high-power priests that already worked in the tribunal or in the chancery. They were just there to get their degrees, to get their stamps, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know crapola about canon law. And I knew I was going to fail. And the first semester, I was not doing well. There was over me this sword hanging that if I fail, I'm going to go back in disgrace, back to Santa Fe, and the priests are going to make fun of me, and I'm going to come back with my tail between my legs, and the bishop will assign me to Roy or whatever, you know, and forget me there. So, you know, what I did is I faced, that was the fear of failure. I faced it, and this is what I came up with. Is that all? Is that all they can do to me? You know, my family and my friends still love me. I'll still be a priest. Who cares whether it's in Roy or not? Is that all? Is that all that can happen to me? And when I faced the fear and turned it over to God, I graduated at the top of my class 2 years later. You know what I'm saying? Because I faced the fear, put it in God's hands, and said, "No matter what, you still love me. No matter what, I'm going to be fine, no matter what. And that freed me to excel. Have you ever had those kind of experiences? You face the fear, the worry, you stop trying to cross bridges before you get there, and you turn it over to the Lord. Because he's the only one that can take care of it anyway. Okay, so that's my second commandment. Are you ready for the third? Write this down. You shall face each problem as it comes. You can handle only one at a time anyway. Isn't that true? I mean, sometimes we feel overwhelmed, and I have a tendency to do this too. But I come from a family of warriors. Oh, this is happening. The collection's not real good. Maybe people don't like me. We can't afford to pay the bills. The plumbing in the old rectory caved in, and all of a sudden, I start piling on. Have you ever done that to yourself? No one's doing it to you. No one's doing it to you. You're just piling on this big pile of crap right on top of you, and you think you have to deal with it all at the same time. No, there's no need to do it. What's the most urgent and most important? And then hand that over to the Lord one day at a time. It's amazing to me. Think of yourself. What were you really worried about a year ago? Do you even remember? What were you worried about a year ago that was going to destroy your life as you know it? Did it? Just face one problem at a time. As the Lord said it so wonderfully, he says, do not worry about this or that, and do not worry about today or tomorrow. Just deal with the issues as they come up. Another one is, don't take your problems to bed. I don't know about you, but sometimes I used to do this. I would take my problems to bed, and then I wake up in the middle of the night, and the chatterbox would come on. Just the constant loop. Remember, you have to do this, you have to take care of that, you have to do this, and no wonder I didn't get any sleep at all. Or I woke up exhausted because I was trying to deal with all these things at night. It doesn't help. Don't take your problems to bed. They make poor bedfellows. I'd rather take my chihuahuas to bed. I have 2 chihuahuas. They sleep with me, one on one side, one on the other. And they're good companions. They give me a little warmth. And sometimes they have bad gas, but I get back at them. You know what? I love this story of John the 23rd. He was the Pope that started the Second Vatican Council. My gosh, this man was in charge of 1 billion Catholics. He was running the church, and he had a great sense of humor. Some reporter caught up with him in the middle of the Vatican. The Vatican has thousands of employees, and one reporter was asking him, well, how many people work here? He said, about half. Was that an honest answer or what? But anyway, he had this wonderful sense of humor, and when he went to bed at night, this is what he used to pray according to the priest who was his secretary. He said, Lord, I've done my best today. I'm going to bed and I'm leaving the church in your hands. Because I can't do anything about it while I'm asleep. I'm putting it all in your hands. I'm going to bed now. I'm going to bed now. Do not try to live or relive yesterday. I was mentioning to you yesterday the experience that I've had with people who committed some kind of terrible mistake years ago and they have never forgiven themselves for it. Or they were hurt by somebody and they haven't been able to let go of it. And they keep on remilling and remilling the grudge. Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever heard of Hispanic Alzheimer's? You forget everything but the grudge? That could be Irish Alzheimer's, It could be Polish Alzheimer's, But isn't it true we forget everything but the grudge? My gosh, let it go. We'd stop holding those closely to yourself. You know, my mother, God bless her, had some kind of falling out with her sisters when we were kids. It was something over the inheritance. Peleando sobre las garras, you know, fighting over the rags of what was left over behind. And I said, so as a consequence, I never got to meet my sister, my tias on the Alire side much. No, I didn't get to meet them much. And there was one sister in particular that my mother, la tenía aborrecida. You know what I'm saying? She just hated this woman. And my mother was very, very sick with Alzheimer's, not Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease. And she was getting weaker and weaker. And I said, Mom, don't you think it's about time for you to make up with my tia Margaret? She said, yeah. You know, sometimes disease wears you down, you know, and it's like a jewel, you know, it polishes you. And she said, yeah, there's no reason for me to go to my grave with that on my heart. So, and this is a woman that had relived that hurt over and over and over again. So I drove her up, and I left them inside the kitchen, and I went outside walking around. And when they came back, both women were lighter. You know, they both went to their graves without having to relive that over and over again. You know what I'm saying? Without any unfinished business, they went to their grave. Without any unfinished business. Okay, count your blessings is another rule for trusting in God. You know, instead of counting how many things go wrong in your life or how many times you failed, count your blessings. It's amazing to me. You know, in seminary they used to tell you this. You'd have to do an examination of conscience every night before you went to bed, which was basically, let me go over how many ways I screwed up today. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. That's not a bad thing to do sometimes, is to do an examination of conscience. But to do it every night? So what I do now is I go over the blessings. How did God act in my life today? How was I able to be used by God today? What were the kindnesses that were people showing me today? You know, and it's amazing. Your heart opens up. If you want to have a life that's really small, complain a lot, bitch a lot, that life didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. So, what was I talking about? Counting your blessings. That's right. I wanted to see if you're awake. Yeah. Counting your blessings. And at night, what I do now is just count my blessings. And when you're a grateful heart is a big heart. It opens itself like a flower petal to receive more blessings. A complaining heart has the hardening of the arteries. It becomes very, very small. When you start complaining about everything, I don't want to be around people that complain all the time. They're a drag. You know, have you ever asked them, how are you doing? Oh, you don't ever want to ask them that question, you know? You know who they are. They're pains in the butt, you know, at work. You don't want to be around that negative energy. How are you doing? I'm blessed. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. Thank you for asking. You know what? It is wonderful. So count your blessings, not your shortcomings or the things that are going wrong. Be a good listener. You can't learn anything when your mouth's open talking all the time. You know, there's some people like that. I know some priests, God bless them. You never get a word in edgewise, you know what I'm saying? It's like some people I know, when you talk to them, and then when they finish talking about themselves, okay, they said, enough about me, what do you think about me? That's total self-preoccupation. That's really concentrating on yourself rather than what's surrounding you. And my last commandment is don't settle for frustration. Especially don't feel sorry for yourself. Self-pity is the most paralyzing thing in the world. It feels warm. Oh, poor me. It feels warm and sticky. You know, it's like, oh, forget it. I mean, what I'm saying, You may want to do that every once in a while, but don't make that as a matter of fact, because it's like being covered with molasses. Eventually it petrifies, and you're stuck there. You know what I'm saying? Self-pity for me, it's horrible. Anyway, those are my 10 commandments for trusting in God. And I have learned them from Fracasso University, okay? And basically all that it means is letting yourself go into God's hands. Isn't that what Jesus did on the cross? I mean, he was fully human. So the human side of him didn't know exactly what was going on. And at the end, I mean, he expressed great fear. My God, why have you abandoned me? And that's very reassuring, because many of us feel that way sometimes. And yet at the end, what did he do? He did the same thing his Blessed Mother did. Be it done to me according to your word. Into your hands I commend my spirit. Do with me what you will. And that total self-surrender God could do something with. He was able to bring about new life. And hopefully that new life will live in you. Thank you for a nice weekend. Thank you.
Time for a few questions. Anybody like to ask the Monsignor before he goes to lunch?
I counted only 8 of your 10 commandments.
I have a funny vision of
I
trust.
think I called him first. Okay, Charlie? Yes, Pat?
Whenever you tell me to do it, I'll do it.
Okay.
How many years did it take you to come up with all the commandments?
I'm still coming up with more of them, It'll take, as long as you're living, you should be learning that even your greatest, even the thing you fear the most and the failures you want to dread the most, I've learned more from my failures than I have from my successes. Is that true for most of you guys? We hate, especially men, we hate to fail. And for that reason, we don't want to look at the failure. And if we look at the failure, it has a lot to teach us. I've learned nothing or very little from my successes, other than my ego works or something like that, But from my failures, I have learned these 10 commandments. You know what I'm saying? And I'll continue to learn. Not that I'm asking for any failures, Lord, but they happen, don't they? And I've learned a lot from them. Yes, Charlie.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
I was fortunate to have been in China. And in China, it used to be Beijing, not Peking. They got a big thing called Tiananmen Square. Now this is in trust. When the Red Guard came in there with those great big tanks, and many of us maybe are old enough to have seen this on the screen through Hollywood's silver screen or whatever. But there was one Chinaman that stood in front of that tank with his arms stretched like that, right in front of that big cannon. It wasn't cannon law, it was just a big tank cannon right in front of him. Now I would call that trust. I don't know why, but that told me that man got more guts, more gumption, more spirit. Whatever he had, he was standing in front of that tank waiting to see what happened. I think the tank moved out.
Yeah, that's a good insight. Somebody else had, yes.
I'm curious about a follow-up on your story on studying canon law.
Yeah.
Have you found there to be any benefits from having achieved that canon law?
Oh, yeah.
So the struggle in terms of your inability to really kind of cope with majoring in that area rather than church history may have had greater payoff than you.
Oh, yes. I have a great appreciation for canon law now. And canon law is the law that governs the church. It's actually older than English common law. And it was the origin of English common law, in the bishop's courts. So And I've learned lots of wonderful things about how the church governed itself. Can I give you a story? A story, okay. I like to compare canon law to freeze-dried crystals. Freeze-dried crystals, coffee crystals. Remember, do they still make those? Coffee freeze-dried crystals? Now imagine these coffee beans growing on the sunny slopes of some mountain in Colombia, and Juan Valdez coming and picking them, okay? Those beans have received the blessings of all that rich volcanic soil, the moisture of the humidity, the beautiful sunshine that goes through there. And Juan Valdez lovingly picks each bean, with his hands and brings them in. And then they are roasted, and by some miraculous process I have nothing to know about, they're freeze-dried into crystals, okay? Now, if you took a spoon of those freeze-dried crystals and put them into your mouth, that would be horrible. It would be not nutritious, it'd be too strong, it'd be bitter. But if you dilute it into the perfect amount of water with especially amount of hot water, some hot water and then some milk and cream, whatever, it becomes a delicious, nourishing drink, okay? Okay. The church laws have been developed over the long history of 2,000 years as the church has faced this challenge and that challenge. And each of these directives that have come out by the Pope's decretals or by the church councils has brought to fruition this set of directives and guidelines. And they've been distilled by some miraculous process into 1,752 laws. That's all the church has over 2,000 years. Isn't that amazing? How many laws do the United States have? Libraries couldn't fill that, But the church has 1,752 laws, but they're like freeze-dried crystals. They're the distillation of all the wisdom of 2,000 years, but you don't apply them directly to a situation because it would be bitter and harsh. What you do is you need someone like a pastor or a community of faith to take it and put it into the proper amount of water to make it into a nourishing drink for us to be able to be guided into the future, okay? So that's canon law. That's Monsignor Jerome's distillation of canon law. And so what I was taught is to be able to be that kind of, brewista, that was able to take that, those laws and apply them to where the human situation is now, rather than just bring down the rules and regulations, but to apply it with a sense of compassion and mercy. I hope that helps, But I come to understand and to appreciate canon law. I still love her church history more, but I was the bishop's canon lawyer for many years.
Monsignor, the last 3-4 months, our church in the United States has been in clear and present danger based on what has happened with that Health and Human Services law, the president has done. It is good to see the cardinals and the bishops coalesce and come together and say, it's our First Amendment right, our freedom of religion in this country. I never thought it would come to this, that it is under attack. As a Monsignor, and as asking about him, first off, we as knights are protectors of priests. It's one of the missions I've seen. What does the bishop, if you could speak for him, if not for yourself, what do you see as the knights, as a tool or whatever to help you, the bishops, protect our faith? Is there anything that you could lend some insight into what they see of us?
I find it a...
The question for the camera, you're still...
how can we as knights help the church in its present struggles with some of the directives that have come down that border on the religious freedom, especially in hospitals and in medical care centers. I think the most important thing is to be public. In Santa Fe, I speak on this from the pulpit all the time. We publish it in the bulletin, the prayer for freedom of religious conscience and things of that nature. But it's your job, the laity, to get out involved. It's amazing to me that in New Mexican or the Albuquerque Journal, we have all kinds of editorials or letters to the editor condemning the church for this, but you never have a Catholic layperson respond. Why not? You know, I send letters, but they won't allow me to. The New Mexican has a policy, that's the Santa Fe New Mexican, that you cannot be published any more than once every 3 months. Which it makes sense, otherwise some people would dominate the letters to the editor. But why not all the rest of the Catholics? You know, it's amazing why we as Catholics don't stand up for our faith. And it doesn't have to be nasty. You know, we don't have to get down to that level. But we can explain the truth and we can bring it to the fore, you know, by expressing our opinions on what's going on. Some of the letters from the far left are actually very nasty and down-putting, and there's no response. It just amazes me. It just amazes me. You know, and as protectors of the church, Knights of Columbus, I think that would be some challenge that you would want to take on. Yes?
Father, ¿qué significa fregazo?
Fregazo means golpe. Yes. It's a punch or hard knocks, no? It's hard, yeah. It's fregazo, F-R-E-G-A-S-O in Spanish, which is fregazo, university. That's why the letters in the middle would be F-U, not for the other reason, okay? You guys bring your minds up to the gutter, okay? Okay, that's enough. Thank you. God bless you. Oh, by the way, I know there are some parishioners of mine, and you won't be at Mass tonight or tomorrow, but I'm being transferred from the cathedral to Pojoaque, and starting June the 3rd. So I just wanted to let you guys know as cathedral parishioners in case
Start a council there, Father.
you want to start a council there. Huh? I've been at the cathedral 12 years and Cristo Rey 6, and so the bishop said, it's time for you to go on. So,
What's the name of the parish?
Our Lady Guadalupe.
Thank you.
Yeah, Father Adam is going to be the new replacement at Cristo Rey. And, yes.
Where is Colonel Santianes going?
He's retiring. So pray for me as I still got to face my fears too. You know what I'm saying? Going on to a new parish and all that. So please pray for me.
Before you leave, can you give us a quick blessing?
Oh, sure. May Almighty God watch over you and protect you. May He send His angels to surround you, and may He fill you with His light. May you do His will gladly, and may the Lord bring you to much peace and happiness. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.